your guitars. These things are beautiful. And
Thank you.
for those of us that, well, I learned and never learned to play as good as you, not even close. But those of us that learned in the '80s, these things are exactly what we would have wanted. And I think, and you have to be so proud of these because I know it takes a lot to put your name on something like this.
Yeah, I mean, what's happened is, first of all, the Kiss years is a long time ago. I started 40 years ago, okay?
Okay.
And guitars and manufacturing and what the companies offer, a lot of it is not that different, okay? But a lot of these companies did keep changing, evolving, being bought, sold, changed, appeal to different markets, et cetera, et cetera. So when not my whole life has been what I used to play with Kiss, which obviously when I joined the band, even to be on my first work was Ghost Guitar on
Yeah.
Animalize. Okay. And Paul specifically asked before he wanted me to come to the studio, do you have a guitar with a Floyd Rose? Right. And of course,
Mm.
I said, at the time, I just had one put together about 6 months before that, or maybe a year before. Yes, you know what I mean, the Floyd Rose thing, right?
Yeah.
So I said yes. So I realized, okay, they're Kiss has evolved and wants to do that kind of stuff. Okay, great. So I had it, and then the next thing I know, I'm touring with them. And for people who know my history, know that I was only filling in, and then I wound up with the gig for 12 years. Okay, which is wonderful. Um, but then the guitar that I brought was really a put together boutique model that wasn't right for Kiss. It was a weird kind of off red color that I didn't care for, but I knew about the Charvels at the time, which would be like the ones made in 83, 84. And they had a pointed headstock with a gold decal on it, which was a very short period of time when they offered those. Very hard to find them. Okay. And I bought the used guitar in the window of Sam Ash on 48th Street. And that became like my main guitar. Then, of course, I said to Kiss, I don't have another one really to bring. I did have a BC Rich which would be for the more vintage songs, no whammy bar stuff, which was a black eagle. And then they said, okay, go pick one out. We'll pay for it. You know what I mean? So they bought me, and I found the three pickup gold Charvel. Okay, Floyd Rose, EMGs, the whole thing. So those, if you look at anything from the early Animalized days, it was the only three guitars I had,
Wow.
and that evolved into for the American tour. I got a silver one. Okay, again, all very hard to find. Transition for Charvel, and I knew about them making super strats. I was comfortable on them, and they're great guitars. But once I started to get introduced after that tour to ESP guitars, because some friends of mine started to work with them, and they were a Japanese company that was making Fender copies of necks and bodies, and the Japanese always loved all the American manufacturers. And the next thing I know, I'm going up there, and now I'm picking out bodies, and I have a flip flop blue guitar, which looks like this.
Yeah.
Now, this is actually one of the AXN builds Kulick guitars, the first one he gave me, to get me like, what do you think of my stuff? And I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? This is like Fender Custom Shop. Now, Fender Custom Shop does a great job recreating, you know, Tellys and Strats and guitars like that. But that actually play a little better than the original ones because, there were certain specifications. I'm not putting down an original, 59 Strat or anything like that, but I'm just saying that things you keep evolving with the way people play and what makes it better. Okay. So I didn't know about Johnny. I think I did see some of his stuff that he was offering some used ESPs and that he was building, but I didn't know him, right? Next
Yeah.
thing I know, like I said, here's this guitar, and I'm like, wow, it's amazing. What are you into? And started the conversation, and the next thing I know, once I complimented it and gave him more details about my specific bolt-on Strat body M1s, which were called Metal One guitars, with a Floyd Rose and one pickup, he learned a lot from what my specifications were or what I was experiencing. And then I learned a lot about, wow, oh, I didn't know that they were even done this way, or they had a small cavity in the back like that, the circle one. I
Yeah.
didn't have
Wow.
those. So he was so educated on from the Charvels to the Kramers, which were ESPs, and Kramer, of course, became iconic because Eddie Van Halen, which were actually ESP parts, the better ones, okay, which is pretty remarkable. but that's kind of what ESP was known for, making great necks and bodies. Now, of course, ESP wanted to get involved more, and they became a legitimate company. And I was like kind of like one of their earliest endorsers in rock.
Mhm.
And I not only I stopped, I played plenty of the one pickup bolt on, super strats as I call them. But then I evolved into their other models like Horizons and different things. Okay. And then I challenged them, make me an Explorer, make me a Les Paul looking guitar. But
Yeah.
again, after Kiss, I didn't use Floyd Roses a lot. I remember the band Union that I had. I
Yep.
had a Vintage Plus Strat, three pickups, Floyd Rose from ESP. That was for the whammy bar stuff. Otherwise, um, then I'm in Grand Funk for 23 years. I did not need a whammy bar. I wouldn't have been appropriate anywhere in their material because their fame came before it really became a fad and existed. So I kept true to that. Now, obviously, when I went off and did some things, I used a guitar that might have had a Floyd Rose, but there was a long time I used to take like a less expensive ESP Les Paul style guitar and imitated. It wasn't really right. I couldn't do any whammy stuff, but I didn't have any of those guitars to travel with to really do. So now I leave Grand Funk. I know that Johnny and I met through this passion of guitars and building in 2020, kind of during the start of the pandemic. And then it
Mhm.
evolved to a point where I learned more in those 4 years, to be honest, than I ever knew about the guitars. And I joined a lot of Facebook groups that talk about both ESPs and Kramers and Charvels to learn even more, and it's been a great journey, a really solid collaboration. Now, a lot of hard lessons. Building a boutique guitar, American made, with quality parts, is not only expensive, but it's very time consuming. Okay. So I think I don't want anyone to understand that you're going to go to a local store and see Kulick models. Okay, it's not going to happen. It's going to be very limited. Johnny himself, you order a guitar from him, it could take him 6 months to a year to finish. That's not unlike if you order a custom ESP made in Japan guitar, it will take you at least a year to see that guitar, and the price will be dear. Okay. So,
Mhm.
what has become popular, and there's nothing wrong with it, is of course there's a lot of import brands that are making solid guitars with a lot of these features that you can get for 15 and under. You know what I mean? And they're quite popular too. And I support anyone that's celebrating the guitars from the 80s and the 90s, of course. So I find the fascination with it. And there are a lot of boutique companies. There's a lot of competition from all these other people who build guitars. For me, my passion would be with the knowledge and the quality of what AXN can provide me with. If I want to go the route of a true limited boutique one, because he uses really great quality bodies and necks. I'll show you the other one. Um, and I did have a banana one made with his parts, but I
Oh,
sold that not that long ago. But I know he talks a lot about this one in the press
that's
because he
amazing.
had this concept and we both developed the design to be a tribute to the Asylum era,
Mhm.
black headstock with my logo on it. There is one more that's going to be built.
Mm.
I showed this at a guitar show here in Vegas, and everybody was asking, "You selling that?" And I won't sell it until the other one's done, and then because this is the prototype, let me see which one's better. It could be really interesting. This could be the new one might be better. This one might still be better. I know they'll both be amazing because I know the quality of what the parts and the wood that is involved with these models are. But yeah, just to get a paint job like this took
Yeah.
forever. Very talented guy out in Atlanta, that outside Atlanta, that did it. Um, I tell you, just everything to do with building a boutique thing. I've learned a lot, so I think moving forward, and maybe instead of it taking 6 or 8 months for me to get something put together, maybe it'll be 4 to 6. But I swear to you, this is so different. I know a lot of the boutique companies, they do it all themselves, basically. You know what I mean? And that way you can control the timeline, I guess. But I'm realizing how hard it is. But then again, these are tributes. They're not exact. I did do some runs with ESP made in Korea. They were great.
Mm.
They were limited, so they sold out very quickly. A banana one, very short. And then I did quite a few of the multi-swirl, which looks like these. How they
Oh
did it, I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
But
Hmm.
they're, you know, because of I did most of those pre-pandemic. I had one run during it, but ironically enough, the pandemic changed a lot of the manufacturing from overseas. Okay, I think everyone's aware of some of those challenges. So that's why there's a good and bad with it. It got me to spend more time and learn about all my guitars, and then meet people like Johnny and explore that route instead of being on the road every weekend. But ultimately, what I learned about building an all-American, made guitar is that it's worth doing, but it is a big challenge. I've met even some local builders here in Las Vegas, and when I talk to them about what I've been going through, yeah, their guitars would go for the same price, not much different than what Johnny's charging for a full-on AXN guitar. So let me get to my goal, is really to celebrate a lot of these iconic finishes and graphics that I did, okay? Because I can't go to necessarily ESP and say, make me a batch of these, for example, this is something I designed for one guitar that I used during the Asylum tour, and it was in Tears of Falling video. This is just a pillow
Yeah,
graphic of it, which is pretty awesome.
that's
But
pretty cool.
and these are available on my website. There's a guy who
Oh,
makes them. It's t-shirts too, brucekulick.com. But this guitar has been copied by other fans. They've actually bought like a Japanese Charvel model because you can't find the gold
hmm
headstock ones. You just can't find them. Nobody offers them. They were very limited. They were all custom. And then they have a painter imitate this. So how cool is it for me to get a painter to then take one of the AXN bodies and make this? Okay. I already imitated, but it was just a tribute again because it didn't have actually a
Yeah,
hockey stick headstock, but the banana guitar. Okay.
yeah, I love those.
And I tell you, that was funny. I showed that one and this one in this Los Angeles guitar show, which was like a big deal because it was the first time in over 20 years that anyone had the guts to put one on. And a
Yeah,
local builder who has a shop here, I supported it. I was there. I wanted to show my guitars. I brought pedals. I sold some stuff. It was fun. But one guy, he kept looking at the banana guitar, and then I'm like, yeah, play this. And the local players and the other people that were there, I wanted them to play. Quite a few of them
yeah,
played this one because I said, you got to feel this because it just plays like butter. It's an amazing instrument. But that guy actually said, "Are you selling that? The banana one?" And I said, "Yeah, you know what I mean. If you want to buy it, because that one, think about it. And I do have another body and neck that is ready to go to a painter. Just painting a solid, yellow color is not as challenging as
mhm,
this kind of design. You have to be a talented airbrush person to do that. Okay. And I know
yeah.
people who are great at both, but they always have their schedules too. So I'm kind of beholden to that as well. But that's a banana tribute. Technically, my original one did have a tone knob. You see the extra one? The one that I built, AXN, which parts, which had got a lot of press in Guitar World and everywhere else. It's
Yeah.
just a one pickup model. Okay. But the key, and then a local guy who put it together for me, this guy Gil, he suggested, why don't you paint the headstock yellow too? It would look great. And I thought it was a great idea. And we went with that, you see. So again, I'm not trying to make replicas where
hmm
when ESP did the banana, I mean, rather like this run for me, they
Yeah.
got pretty damn close, although each one is a little different. The paint process on that, I don't even understand. But these will all be tributes. Would I come up with some new things? I would first want to explore some of those great finishes that are that I had fun with that. That was one of the benefits of being in Kiss, that I could challenge Grover Jackson. I had a zebra. I don't have an example of that one here, I don't think, but there was a finish that I just thought, oh, let's do this, and then some of it will be zebra and black on a white guitar. And again, another graphic that could be created. The flip flop blue is almost like a car finish. That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Okay. And Johnny found somebody, and he can't find that guy anymore. All right.
Hmm.
ESP gifted me a beautiful recreation that I use a lot when I do a cameo here in my my nice room here. But to be honest, I don't know if I can how easily I'll be able to accomplish
Yeah.
that. So it's been really a remarkable learning experience for me. And at the same time, I know the reaction I get when I take out one of these guitars. I don't play a lot live, but when I do, now when I'm going to go to Mexico, do I want to take a guitar that I think is like a $5,000 guitar? No, I don't. Okay, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Especially when it's like a one of a kind. So then I take like a production ESP Horizon. I customize it. I might put a radioactive symbol, and that's another guitar that I could easily do on John's. I don't know if that pillow is here. Maybe it's right behind me. Yeah. Just put
Oh,
some
yeah.
radioactive symbols on a red guitar.
That's really
Right.
cool.
Yeah. Or black and put the white. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's so many things to explore with this. Yet, if anyone's under the impression that I'm gonna have like a lot of stock, I just know it's not possible.
Yeah.
But the intention's there, and if they get one, they're getting a very limited, cool thing that is something that is up to my standards. And I got to admit, Johnny is very, very. He wants to build. He takes a lot of pride in that. So he's trying to build, the Ferrari, Lamborghini of M1 guitars. You know what I mean? And I admire that from him. Then you have if you're not manufacturing your parts, you have that issue, right? You're going to have to make sure that everything you get is great. I primarily use Duncan pickups, and I have a
Mhm.
good relationship with Seymour Duncan. So if they're going to hand wire me a pickup, especially that girl MJ, who's terrific, and that's what's happened on a few of these models, I know I got a great pickup. But again, uh, it's going to be interesting in 2025 to see how many I can kind of get together.
Yeah, that's so cool. And it's interesting. You said 40 years, and you look at that face and the animal, and say like, wow,
Yeah.
it probably brings back some great memories from that time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited with, first of all, I celebrate all the anniversaries of
Yeah.
my era. And I'll be totally honest. We know that Kiss, once first they put the makeup back on with Ace and Peter, hugely successful, understandable. And then as, the old cracks of the relationship
Yep.
appear, suddenly Peter's not there. They get Eric Singer. Then Peter's there for a tour. And then they have to go back, and then it's Eric Singer. And then when Ace was a problem, and then Tommy Thayer stepped in, they didn't play much of my era. They just didn't. Understandably, in some ways, even though I do think that a lot of that music wants to be heard, but I
Oh yeah.
was always, celebrating it. And now looking past, now they ended touring, as you know it. Kiss was sold to
Mhm.
a big company who's looking at these avatars and maybe other things. But to have the 40th anniversary of Animalize is awesome. And next year will be Asylum.
Yeah.
There's also an MTV anniversary of 30 years because we filmed, it was in 95, MTV Unplugged.
Wow.
So in that case, I love to celebrate the Ovation, the Black Ovation guitar that I played for that. So I have a lot of things like that. And all of it is just, I'm not saying if I merchandise something, I can't make some money, obviously. But the point is, I'm really so proud of what contributions I was able to make, and how powerful Kiss and how amazing what they offered at those in those years. And I don't know how much they appreciate it. We'll see. Maybe there'll be some good stuff in 2025 representing my era more. But
Mhm.
I take a lot of pride in that. So I'm going to
Yeah.
celebrate it regardless.
That's true. Well, a lot of people think the Revenge album was one of the greatest albums they had. So
Revenge
especially.
had a lot of wonderful music on it. I will say that the yellow banana guitar made a big mark on it, as well as and that was another guitar. I don't have a pillow or design to show you, but I had for Hot in the Shade, I played a plain white, slightly off white M1, like the banana, one pickup.
Mhm.
And then for the next tour, though, I remember Hendrix used to play like a 63 Strat with a rosewood fingerboard that was white, but it had a tortoiseshell pickguard on it, something like that. And I was like, oh, that looks great. So then I had someone put a tortoiseshell pickguard on the guitar. So I got two tours out of that model, which is pretty cool. And that's easy to replicate. I've had fans look at my version of your Revenge guitar. So I recorded with that and toured with it. What can I say? I love, absolutely love any of the kind of tribute guitars that fans have created. So it's time for me to, and I'm hoping they're happy with what they have, but I certainly had that desire. Now that album had great material. What can I say? There's highlights on all of my
Yeah.
contributions, but I am pretty excited. Like I went to Mexico for a couple of three performances, and the fans have not forgotten my era. I mean, they're into it because when I look at the crowd, thinking that I'm playing songs from a catalog that's largely between 30 and 40 years old, um, and I see kids out there that are, 15 to 25. You see what
Mhm.
I mean? They weren't born then; they didn't know, and yet they love it.
Mhm. And that's what's amazing too is for years people have looked up on that stage, and you make it look a whole lot easier than it is. But now you've got a whole new generation, and so what kind of advice do you give to those kids that are looking up at you and saying, "I want to do what you do"?
Well, and I need to make everybody understand. I'm glad I make it look easy, but it isn't. Okay, I spend a lot of time preparing for events and rehearsing. I realize in the moment anything can happen, but I do try to prep myself the best I can, and I do have to add that some of the stuff from 40 years ago is harder to play now. I mean, let's be honest. I was at my, if you want to look at it like an athlete, I was at my athletic best when I'm like 30, and when you're 70, it's not as easy. Okay. So I have to take that into consideration too. Now, I think young kids who obviously have a tremendous, probably, muscle coordination and everything is really going to be in their favor being younger. But you really got to walk before you run. I can't stand when I see people that are just trying to rush through things. I think a lot of players also don't pay attention to vibrato enough or phrasing enough. And what I always prided myself in was studying people like Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix and
Mhm.
Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, and sometimes where you don't play is just as important where you do play. Okay. Now, if they admire me or Eddie Van Halen or players like that, they need to know that we all, kind of got our vocabulary from some of those players, okay, that I just mentioned. I saw a video where Eddie Van Halen, early on when they first took off, and he's doing an interview backstage and he's playing Crossroads by Cream for the interviewer. And he still sounded like Eddie Van Halen, but he played it note for note, and he
Mhm.
had all Clapton's that the musical phrasing with a vibrato that was a bit of a hybrid between Eric and Eddie, but you don't play that well without owning it and kind of feeling like this moves me, you know what I mean? And I know how to interpret that. Okay, so that's why I find that uh, the people who are just playing without attention to those key elements, um, those players move people emotionally because what they played was very emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you'll like this. So my co-host is Drew Pearson, one of our great Dallas Cowboys. Caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame.
Wonderful.
And we love to ask people their Hail Mary moments. So he said I had to ask you your Hail Mary moment, that moment in your life or career where you just had to go for it and it worked out for you. What do you suppose that was for you? Might have been Kiss, might have been something else.
Well, I really no. I mean, I can't negate that once I knew I was in Kiss. You know what I mean? That this was an opportunity that, especially with it lasting 12 years, and the band actually now looking back carried on for a total of 50. So
Yeah.
it's stayed iconic. But I guess in some ways it always stood out to me being born in New York, seeing some of these great players I just told you about at
Mhm.
Madison Square Garden or somewhere in New York City, because they all had to play in New York City. And I was smart enough to want to see that and kind of like soak it in. But when
Yeah.
we played Madison Square Garden, obviously I felt like I made it. You know what I mean. I mean it was really, certainly there were other highlights with Kiss, and as soon as I knew that I was going to be in the band, and we did Detroit Cobo Hall, which was very famous. It doesn't exist anymore, but we filmed MTV animalized live, and that would just had a big celebration. So I've been looking back at it, and I'm like, wow, I could tell I was absolutely giving it my all. I was having and I'm sure I was nervous too, you know what I mean, because I care. But I'm just saying, I'm sure at that point, I realized I'm on top of the world, and this is an incredible moment. I remember Diana Ross tying my shoelaces backstage because she was friends with Gene, and
Yeah.
how incredible it is that I'm playing with this famous band, and the band. They took off the makeup because it went down. Okay, what I mean. It got to that point where it was like whatever, and then all of a sudden they rose up, would lick it up, and now the Animalize record's a hit. And even though I'm not, I only did a little ghost guitar work on it. I'm still part of the live tour and the performance, and that was really exciting to be part of this success, because all the other artists that were famous that I played with, I still didn't feel I was a big enough part of it. From Meatloaf to recording a Billy Squier album, or working with Michael Bolton. You know what I mean? The
Hmm.
Kiss thing clearly was a real bucket list, tremendous big check mark, no doubt.
Yeah. Part of that is that success mindset that we talk about that on the show. Is there something you keep in mind that always has kept you on the right path or still does keep you on the right path?
Well, my dad had a funny job actually. He worked with the government. He was a quality control engineer. Okay, so sometimes that meant he was doing things for aircraft carriers that the system had to work.
Yeah.
For a while he was approving oddball things for NASA. Okay, which was obviously cool. Um, so anything at home, and we used to like to dabble sometimes in electronics because I was always fascinated with it. In fact, recently I was reading my Lafayette catalogs again. Lafayette was a big radio and music supply kind of electronics shop in Long Island. And I was sending pictures to my buddy Eric Singer because it would have
Yeah.
all these cool stereos, and even some gear. There's equipment. There's like rare guitar pedals in there. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe they were selling it. But we're talking about catalogs from the mid '60s to the late '70s is what I was looking at. So anyway, my dad and I, anytime we worked on anything, it always had to be right. You know what I mean? You shouldn't cut corners. You shouldn't just do it um, half-assed. And I think he instilled that in me. I don't feel. I know my mother ran the house, and mostly um, took care of me as a child. But that's one thing I got from my dad, this work ethic. So I get really on other people when I'm taking on a project, and I think that they're like, yeah, whatever, we'll get it. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? No. And I'm really surprised. I really admire the musicians that come prepared, and that means even just to do your interview today, I want to make sure, all right, my
Yeah.
room's lit well, I look like a human being, I didn't roll out of bed hacking on you or something. So taking pride in
Yes.
what you do, who you are, how you present yourself. um I mean, you still got to keep it real. I'm never overly I'm hardly ever pretentious, to be honest, but I just think that everybody out there should always. Um, I don't care if you're flipping a burger for me. Make it with love, okay? Please, that's all. So
Yeah.
if I'm going to rehearse and I'm going to work with guys, I want it to be as good as it can be. I have to accept limitations. There's certain things you can't control, that, but I just try to bring out the excellence as best as I can.
Good. Well, last thing before we get back to wrap it up with the guitars, how about some new music from you? Are we going to hear some new stuff on as a Christmas
Yeah,
song?
I started writing during the pandemic, and I kept promising that, all right, well, I'm in lockdown, I'll get it out, and then all of a sudden it opened up, and then I got busy, and I got this, and I got that. So it's one of my goals for 2025.
Yeah.
2024 was the first year I didn't have nearly every weekend of my life traveling for Grand Funk Railroad. Okay, because I did that for a very long time, and the only break was during the pandemic. And then if a guy like, we got to take these 6 weeks off, what I mean, and that was it. So I did travel more than I expected to, but I no way you can't compare it to what I used to do. And I have a couple of goals for 2025. Was obviously to really make some big advances with new music and get it recorded, even if it's an EP. It doesn't have to be 10 tracks. And then also writing my book because I finally I amassed a lot of materials from that era. When I first started a book with a guy in the industry back in like '99, and there were a lot of interviews done, and I was able to get all those tapes digitized because that's important. You know what I mean? To spark my memories and stuff. I have notes of subjects, and it's certainly going to be a really in-depth discussion of my life as a musician, with, of course, hefty amounts on my Kiss years, because I know that the fans are going to want to, get my thoughts on how everything, how it felt and what I did. It's certainly not going to be some salacious, slam book.
Yeah.
It's not me. And, but I do have a lot of stories that I never really discussed that I think are going to be really fun for people to read about and fascinating for them to see. Um, everything was in many ways a very interesting journey, and there were many of like where you fall in the ditch, but you got to pull yourself out, that kind of thing.
That's it. Well, last thing then, these guitars are beautiful. Tell us where we can get them, and also tell us where we can get these pillows and everything else because
Oh yeah. Well, on my
everything.
website, yeah, brucekulick.com. I
Mhm.
hooked up a couple years back with a guy who developed a company. He just had this idea, guitar nut tees, because he loves guitars. He's actually a good player too. So this guy Aaron and I started discussing. First, he just wanted to do the designs of the guitars, and then pillows, and then it actually evolved where I don't think I have any of them that have my name on it. Then we realized, well, some people would like to like maybe it'd be better if it said Bruce Kulick and showed the guitar, and then So anyway, they're on my site, but you don't actually, as you click on them on brucekulick.com on the shop page, it goes directly to them. They ship it directly to you. They're really really quick too, and they really do a great job. Quality stuff. I'm very happy about everything I've been doing with them, and there's some more things I want to do with him. There was a radioactive jacket that he perfected. I got it late this year, but I didn't want to. I didn't have time to get it together. Say for Christmas, you look great in my radioactive. You know what I mean? It looked like my radioactive suit kind of. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff from him. Now there is a page on my website that's Kulick Guitars. More information coming soon. Probably shared the Guitar World link so you could read a little more about it and stuff like that. But that's the best place. But once I have some available, I will share some things on social media again, because it's not going to be anything where I can order anything in mass, because they're all made, one at a time. So, but the website's a great place, and all my social media. I always like today. I made a great post. I felt that, well, it's the holidays, and everyone likes to be around red. You know what I mean, from the Santa hat to your guitar. So I just showed a bunch of red guitars, and that people are liking that. Show me yours. And red's a great color for guitars. It is, and I'll probably make a radioactive Kulick guitar. You
Oh,
know,
good.
but I it's not going to be hard to find out about it. But they'll be so limited. I may have to just reach out to one or two of those guys that are very passionate about